And we will call the May 28th Park Board to order. We'll start with roll call.
Rushmeyer.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Scheib.
Here.
Miller.
Yes. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any further discussion on the agenda? Here, oh, yes. No?
Did you want to add the thing?
Oh, yeah,
I already forgot.
I don't know what kind of agenda item that would be, I guess, if we want to add. Or can we just take a quick pit stop and not make an agenda out of it, item? For Troy.
Resignation of
Yeah.
board member.
I would just add it as a quick, short item as a resignation.
Okay, sounds good, yeah, so we'll just do that. Make it 8A then, in new business, and scooch everything down after presentations.
I will amend my motion to add a new item 8A for board member Rushmeyer.
Yep, I will second that.
Alrighty, motion and a second amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved with the amendment. Moving on to the consent calendar, a notice of the public. All matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. No separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion, to be adopted by roll call. Any comments or concerns on the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to adopt the consent calendar consisting of the minutes, the disbursements, and the financial reports.
Second, Rushmeyer.
Motion and a second on the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say, we'll actually call the roll. That's right.
Rushmeyer.
Yes.
Sandy.
Yes.
Schaefer.
Yes.
Scheib.
Yes.
Miller.
Yes. All right. We have approved the consent calendar. We'll move on to the presentation by the Kiwanis Club.
I'm Brian Ross, current president of Kiwanis. I've been here before. I think we have some new members on here. I've been working on different things with the park since Paul Sandy was the engineer. The first thing first of all, I want to say thank you for all you've done there for Kiwanis Park. Those sidewalks, I know you had some, the APPR funding or whatever it was from the COVID funding, but those sidewalks are super down there, and we also worked with United Way to get the Born Learning trail there. I was always confused, and they said Born Learning. I says, well, this is another the Born. Jason Bourne thing, or what is it? But it's born learning, as in born. When kids are born, they're born learning. And so we helped the United Way put that in. We put another amenity, the little library in there, a little free library, which it's really popular because the books keep flying out of there. They're supposed to bring them back, but they don't often. We added a couple with the assistance of the city and Jesse. We added a couple benches last year. We paid for to honor some of our former members. Did a cleanup last year, so we really and all love the pavilion. Things that the city has done for the pavilion and everything. It's just looking like a better and better park all the time. And accessing the with the new sidewalks, accessing the dock there, the fishing pier was kind of a great thing because it was designed for that. You couldn't kind of get there without having a sidewalk, which we didn't add at the time. But the main thing now is I talked a couple years ago probably with adding a sign that we'd like to add a sign at the park, and it went through our park committee with the Kiwanis, and they said, well, we should have a standalone sign, something like the Boom Lake one, if you put that one up there. And there's another one down there, another historical sign that I assume the city paid for, but probably worked with Carl Fost or something on putting that together. So it'd be something similar like that. We would pay for the whole thing. I'm not sure the cost for the standalone one. I talked to Brainerd Signs, and they said he could do the panel thing for $500 to $1,000, and all I have to do is give him that image, and he can put it on the Vipond or Vipond. No, I always get it wrong, but it's an aluminum material on either side with like a foam in the middle, and so it's pretty strong. You know, it can handle most things. So that was what we'd like, and half of it, as you could see, was related to the history of Kiwanis Park. What we could come up with, it was a little tough to find because a lot of that stuff, you know, from the 60s and 50s and 60s wasn't there. But the park was formed in, the Kiwanis Club was chartered in 1954, and we assume they started on that soon after. And I did get a good photo from Brian Marsh there at the Historical Society showing the 1950 flood there and showing that, you know, there's nothing there but a sand trail crossing through there. So it's you know, great changes in there and quite an amenity now, very popular park. And then a little bit about the club. You know, people are going to go, what's Kiwanis? You know, what is that? And so we just wanted to answer that question, plus get a little advertising out of it. So we're looking at putting it by where we put the free library, kind of at that first access there toward the restroom pavilion. But we're open and open for to the sign too. If the city has a sign committee they want to go through, or Jesse hasn't said anything one way or another on it. So I think it's a good sign. But so that's what we're asking for. There is just that motion, and we'd get going with it and try to get it done. This working, of course, with the city to get it installed in the summer. One question I had was, you know, like you've done with the benches now, which is a neat addition, is putting them in concrete, and then two of them that were put in now are right next to the one of the paved trails, so that makes a lot of sense. And I don't know if this is something that would be, you know, on a concrete pad or if it's just a concrete foundation. Any thoughts on that?
We've typically just direct buried them in turf grass.
But our part, one moment though. But under our new park design deal, aren't all new signs in concrete or not?
The large entrance signs, the big park signs, we put those on our concrete pad, but these, like the historical signs, we've just direct buried those.
One thing with those, I know the one, I think it's the Boom Lake sign, it looks like somebody pushed it back. I don't know if that's a little frost heave or just was moved a little bit, so that was, and that probably was just because there was soil there. But anyway, whatever you want to do there. So I'm just looking for approval of the sign and I know, you know, as far as what's on there, if the city wants changes, we're really open to that. I have it on a publisher file, so I can edit it and do any changes pretty quickly, and then just get the PDF to the sign maker, and they can make that Vipond sign.
I think we will pause there just since there are two items for this item. So any comments on, you know, the sign itself, the contents, things like that for Brian? Fair?
I'm curious about why you chose that location for where you want that sign to go.
That's a good question. I think mainly it was because it's access there. There's a nice sidewalk there from the main parking lot. And it's kind of a neat, because then you've got the playground behind. As people enter the park with children, usually heading for the playground, they would, see that and then and get more information about it. So that was my thought with that. But again, we're open to to put it in. Originally, it was thought maybe we'd put it. Well, we were originally thinking we would mount it on the pavilion, the restroom pavilion. But then we thought standalone would be better. We could put it down by the restroom there. But the other thing that's kind of unique about it does have the duck right behind it, where that position would be the famous Kiwanis Park duck. So.
comments or questions about the sign for Brian? Andrew?
I think the sign's great. I suspect we could get you a city logo with a transparent background, though. I see just a little bit of a outline.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, only very, very small thing, but I love it.
Yeah, I just took it off the website, so yeah, no,
Totally.
a more appropriate logo would be fine, yeah.
But yeah, I love it. I love the old photos, particularly the one of the flood is wild. So, yeah, super cool.
And I think my only comment is to parrot you here. I really do love the sign. I like the history of these types of things because, I mean, a lot of our park system is maintained by groups, and so I like the history of the group along with the park info. Something that I think even Cara and I had talked about, or Kara, sorry, and had talked about before, like the history of the parks and stuff. So it's really interesting to me. But otherwise, I think my only comment is making sure that we have the, it's matching whatever design standards we do have for signage like this. And I guess I was not quite around. I think it was shortly before, we put it, those standards together was, my time was after that. So if there is anything that we need to make sure it's,
I think Jesse's right. I
Yeah.
think it's just for the big entrance signs.
yeah, and I just wasn't sure if we had, like, you have the Boom Lake sign example, like if that's the design standard we had for signs like this or something like that, we're just relaying that information. I don't, again, this sounds like it'll be a touch bigger than the Boom Lake sign, but, if there was any sort of colors or things like that on, that sort of standard, that we are relaying that information over to Brian, so.
So the sign, similar to like the Boom Lake sign, is not covered in the design standard that I have currently. The closest we have with any type of historical signage is like an encasement that's wall mounted with like a glass door, which you can fit like 6 different sheets, and we've talked about that, and that doesn't really fit the goal of what they were trying to achieve here with what they were doing here. So that was something that we had discussed. Is that
That's what I thought.
that piece.
Too, so, okay, yeah, I don't have any further comments. Anything new from that set of comments? All right. So I think we'll do all of the motions and things like that at the end. So we'll move on to the second part of this one,
Okay.
the playground.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the progress we made on the playground. Again, I was probably here 2 years ago with the idea, and I know the city was looking at looking at their budget and will replace the playground equipment. They've pushed it out a little bit, which is understandable. So we had Stacy Strand with Flagship Recreation. He's our local consultant. They worked. I think you guys worked with him at Memorial Park. I don't know if that rings a bell for the water. What do they call it again?
Splash pad.
Splash pad.
Yeah.
Worked with them on that. So they work with Landscape Structures, which is a Minnesota firm based in Delano, and that does all the landscape stuff. And they've done they did the Harrison playground. That was another one he mentioned. And they've done several of them. So what we did is he came in and talked to our group at one of our regular meetings, and then we took him down there and had him look around and his thoughts. And looking at some of the other discussions you've had, it seems like there's a lot of discussion on playground equipment, obviously because they're very expensive, but also because most parks have or need playground equipment. So with that, we just had them go down there, and then they came back. We went down. It was probably January. Of course, there wasn't any snow, so he was able to see everything pretty well. And then sent somebody back about a month later to take some measurements, and then they started working from there to put the design together. So they did a total replacement, and again, we just got most of this information last week, so it's kind of new. We haven't, our park committee hasn't met yet. There's a lot there. There's a lot to chew on. There's a lot different budget, different things that could be done by us as a Kiwanis Club or the city, as to help with that, not only capital improvement type stuff like purchasing the playground equipment and the pads or whatever, but also tearing down the old equipment and moving that out, using the park equipment, park board equipment, or park and rec equipment. So we're really excited about it. Again, it's going to be an inclusive playground. We'd like that, and we thought that was a great idea. One of our members, Jan Lambert, brought that to us, and we like that idea. And it seems like it's a great location for an inclusive playground because of it's so used by children. Almost everybody seems to know it. Even visitors, most visitors seem to somehow know about Kiwanis Park. It's got great access. It's got the parking lot there, the trail. It's got a lot of other amenities. The dock, the fishing pier, or the dock on the boom lake itself. The other trails, the Mississippi River. So it seems like a good idea. We have a lot of planning and discussion that has to go on before it comes to fruition. We'd probably like it moved up some, I know it was now 3031, and it looks like there may be some opening like in 2026. I know you've also got another park, the Buffalo Hills Park, that seems like it's in more need of replacement for the playground equipment. But that's the plan. No real action at this point. We'll assist with funding, of course, to do things such as the pads. They're obviously that materials are very expensive, and maybe some of it would just be that, and the rest would be wood chips. Remains to be seen. The one beauty down there is, with the trees are deciduous, so you don't have a lot of pine trees down there. And it's easier to clean off with, just blowing it off with, as far as I know, as far as my understanding. So that's where we're at on it. It does have swings. We can always add more swings. I guess you always need more swings. It shows now accessible swings, but it also has one of the where you glide. I can't think of the name of it offhand. You jump up and you glide on. It's not that long a one, but
Zip line?
zip line, yeah. It's got a little zip line on one end at this time. Some interpretive signs, but it's all up to, they did it, put everything in, and then of course we'll probably have to trim some things to make sure we get into the budget. But so that's all I have for now on that at this point.
Any questions or comments on the preliminary concepts for this playground?
Did you say that you knew a price? I know you said you just heard last week, but did he give you a tentative price?
Yeah, when you look at everything, it was up around 200 and some thousand, and and I didn't really dig into it. I mean, they had a lot of itemization of different things, like just removing the old playground. I think he had 15 or 25,000 for that. So if that's something the city would, could assign to the park and rec, workers, that type of thing. But so there's a lot there, and it was a lot to digest, and I didn't have a chance to get through it in detail. But that's a rough number there, yeah.
I got a couple of things. With that price level, Jesse, if it is that 200,000, that's probably going to trigger us going for bids on that for that over 175,000, unless we can self-perform some of that work and get it underneath that 175. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Sure. 175. Yeah, I didn't realize that number. Okay.
Yep. Maybe more of a question for Jesse. I think our design standards do have a manufacturer and kind of a standard fitment and feel for the playground equipment that we order.
Yes, it does. Just a moment, I can pull that up.
So I'm wondering if we are kind of, locked into this design and this layout, can we at least make it look similar to the other playgrounds that we've recently ordered, like Meadows, Triangle Park and things? I think it was more of a maroon color, with more tans and maroons, but that's just a question if that's just specific to that manufacturer or if this manufacturer has that ability to change colors and things. And then I just had a question about when it was budgeted for and how much we had in the budget. If it was 80,000 for 2031?
It is
110.
currently 100, well, so there's two parts to the 110. One is for the playground and the other part is the swing set. The total of both is 110 and they're both budgeted in 2031 currently.
One of the issues that we always kind of ran into also was with that budget number, we would budget for the playground equipment, but the ancillary things that come about with installing a playground, like the planks around the outside and the mulch, that always tended to put us over budget on these things. And so it's just something to be aware of, is that the equipment itself and the installation thereof is their cost. And then there's other ancillary things that come along with it, like the border and the wood chips and things that tend to add to that cost.
So speaking of other ancillary, the surface, the blue and the gray surfaces, is that all concrete, proposed concrete?
No, it's that rubber pad material.
On the inside, the blue area?
The blue area, yeah. And outside is also that rubber pad material, just a different coloring to it too, at this point. So I mean, it is, quite a chunk of area that's.
Yeah, it seems
that has
quite wide.
Yeah. Well, and they actually measured off of the sidewalks, that the accessible sidewalks too, now that they have in there. And the map or the plan is probably the best, although they don't show the sidewalks there. Maybe that's something we can get them to add if they put that in there, just to kind of show how that fits in the park. So the plan kind of has a north arrow, so that kind of helps orientate you as to where that would be. But the accesses would come off the sidewalks, that two access is my understanding at this point. But it would be that rubberized material, which I don't know if that's impermeable. Does anybody know what? Is that stuff?
Well, that's my question.
Yeah.
If it's that, then is there something that has to be underneath that?
Yeah, they have I think I'm not sure if it's class 5 gravel or what but they require some type of material or just a regular sand of some type, that, so that it drains, within, from that area there, so.
Does that have holes in it?
It's porous, but it, in a sense, so that water will drain through it.
I guess my other thought on that is that, this looks like a great playground. But down the line, what's gonna be the cost to repair that when it goes bad,
Right. Yeah, I don't know much about the material, but that would be something you would certainly want to look into and explore further. And it'd be new to the city as far as having that type of material. Now, the school district has one there at the what used to be the South Campus there. They have a small playground with that material in there, and then I was at a playground down in Montevideo, and they had that same material, and I think it would wear pretty good. But you're right. How long is it? How long is it good for? 20 years, 30 years?
And I think that would just be a good thing to include in your research, and
Right.
is because I know the park board over the last several years has been very focused on what it's gonna cost to maintain, every aspect. of
Absolutely,
our
yeah.
parks. So, I think it's a great thing, but, how much green do we wanna give up? And then, if this stuff goes bad, what's the life cycle of it, and then what's the cost to replace? And
Right.
I think those things would be beneficiary to bring forth if you can find that information out.
Sure. Okay. Appreciate that. The one thing too, didn't really think about much is that there's actually three levels of that playground, because it does drop down toward Broom Lake a little bit. So there's like 3 tiers, and they thought about just making sure it was all one, And so then you'd have to kind of, flatten that whole area out and kind of grade it some, and that's, another cost too. But to make it, less, because now you got to kind of jump down to another level to go on the merry-go-round and do different things. This would be a little bit more level type of situation for that. And I think, it was a little surprising to me too on how much they put in there. But one of the things that maybe, and we'll have to, again, take a look at this. This is just kind of an idea discussion is, wood chips, like you said, are, that becomes expensive, that type of thing. And that's maybe something that, we could pay for and then have it hauled in, and then we would, transport it with some of our own equipment to get put it in place and that type of stuff. Work with the park board or park and recs people to do that. So a lot of different ideas. I mean, there's a lot of different little aspects to it. I've got to kind of go through in detail with my committee and then go back to the designer group, Stacy Strand and Flagship Recreation, and talk about those things. These are good things to discuss and know about for the future, because you're right. You want to make sure it's going to last and that there's less maintenance overall in the future.
Jesse, did you have a comment on the surface you were going to make? I saw you about the light up there on the outer surface, like what goes underneath it.
No, you just, especially in this area, there is a little bit of higher moisture content, so you're going to want to make sure that you have a decent enough structure that's not going to want to move and crack, especially over time. If it does get any kind of weathering, it's going to want to crack if it moves. So you're just going to want to make sure that it's protected and that it stays still. And I'm not sure what the maintenance plan of those are, of how often it needs to be treated to keep it be malleable, and so it doesn't want to stress crack, that it wants to be spongy, I guess.
Awesome.
More questions?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, Andrew.
No.
The, also with it, how big of sections are they? And maybe you don't have any idea, but, if they're small sections and they're rubber, and sometimes I just get carried away, I get,
I think it's poured.
Yeah, it's poured in place, is my understanding. Yeah, yep, like poured in place, so it's one
not
continuous.
so easy for someone to walk away with sections of it to put in their garage or something.
No. Well, you're right though. Somebody may think of it like that. But, I mean, it would be a chore for them, I think, to do that. But no, that's a good point. Regarding color too, I think they can do just about anything. This landscape structures, they do them all over the country, and they have a lot of different areas they're doing them, and they have just a myriad of colors that you can use for different things. So if you're using that maroon and tan, and then the specifications for playground, I wasn't aware that they had that, so we want to make sure we get a copy of that when we get a chance. As far as we go there.
Yeah, and Jesse will sneak in here quick.
Well, I can just clarify that if we're over the 175,000, we would have to prepare a bid package either way. So it may not matter on the vendor if we have to prepare a bid package that's open for solicitation.
Okay. Oh, Andrew.
Jesse, do you know when we're presenting our budget or capital plan to the council? It just, in terms of moving things around, I don't necessarily want to touch that until we've reviewed it with them, so it's not a moving target to discuss.
So I think in early June, we'd like to give them a preliminary look at the budget, but our formal presentation will most likely be until August. So I think we were kind of targeting this early June for a initial look at all of our capital.
Cool, thank you.
2 questions. Okay, so is it going to be on the same footprint? So you're going to have it like exactly the same, no trees are coming down or anything that you're planning? It's kind of hard to tell from the picture, like exactly.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. there's no trees right in that area, so you wouldn't be taking any of the trees down.
Just want to make sure, since they're
Yeah,
expensive and we're trying to keep as many trees, especially if there's anything left over there after this ash thing goes through.
understandable.
And then, so then you're planning to keep that, the duck, that would be,
Yeah, the duck is not within that footprint. The duck is a little bit up the hill a little bit, and so that would be just the separate. And the one thing that I didn't bring up too was we're looking to. Well, we probably could come up with 30,000 now, but we're looking to go with grants and additional. The Kiwanis Club International has a grant program, a competition that we'd enter in, once we got the details nailed down. But then also there's those other grant, and I think Jesse was saying most of them are in the fall or something available, or reapply.
It's kind of typical for a lot of the playground vendors. They come up with different grant programs around the fall time. Kind of move outdated, or I'll call them outdated, but out of season equipment.
So we would enter into, that try to get as many grants as we could. Plus, we're willing to, as an organization, willing to do some additional fundraising, whether it's we have the grandstand events at the county fair, which are a big fundraiser, and so that would be something we could, target on. So realistically, we'd probably come back, and maybe I guess we'd like to have some input into when that would be, but realistically coming back with some type of agreed on design package maybe next summer, with the idea either build in 2026 or 2027. I didn't look at all you got quite a budget plan available. I only printed one page out of the 69 pages. So I haven't looked at that, but I was a little surprised to see it out at 31, because at one point it was at 25 or 26, which I understand there's a lot of needs out there, so you have to make a plan somewhere. But pulling it up a little bit would certainly be our wish at this point.
Well, as far as the playground discussion is concerned, something else? Nope. I think, we have a lot of, not a lot of, but a few additional questions to answer as far as the design and the materials and actually the overall cost. Obviously, we have maybe a closer estimate to what our responsibility for the city and then maintenance-wise we'd be concerned about. And then, of course, contributions from the club as well. But, as far as moving it up, I'm not really, as far as, do you have any, make some adjustments? Do we have anything we could scooch around that would make it feasible in 26 or 27? Jesse?
Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I know you were talking about potentially having some discussions about Mills Field as well.
Yes.
Kind of in that 26 to 31 range is some pretty large items in Mills Field. It could be more appropriate to have those discussions as well, and that might help with some of the planning discussion.
That would definitely assist because, those are some very big ticket items during that date range. So maybe we can have a more in-depth discussion about Mills Field, which would alleviate some of that budget pressure. And then if we can sneak things in a little bit easier with those adjustments or changes or not, that would be a more appropriate setting. So, that discussion, I guess, forthcoming. But otherwise, I think we have a little bit of direction as far as what adjustments we need to maybe make to the concepts and what other homework we all need to do on in the meantime. So, Andrew.
Just a quick budget thing to add. We have 2 playgrounds in 2028. Gregory's Southeast and then the Memorial Playground. So if we're thinking about a swap, it would be weighing kind of the condition of those 3 and seeing which ones we think need help the earliest, soonest. Oh boy. Yeah, just something to noodle on.
I do have one more.
Yeah.
item. Also, I think maybe, you're talking about it being flat and a lot of the grading, there's significant hill there, so I think that needs to really be considered as well. To make that flat is gonna really change that section of the park, and I love the concept, I do, and I just think that all of those things, there's something attached to all of that, and vision and cost and the functionality of the park coming off from the parking lot, and I don't know that we want to have retaining walls or something in there because we took so much, we had to do so much grading to make this work, but it is a very popular park, and a lot of people use that park. So, I mean, you guys do a lot of tremendous work, and we appreciate your efforts. I think we're just throwing out some things that are definitely going to be looked at when you come back with a full proposal on this. But
Absolutely, yeah, I really appreciate the board's input, different things to look at as we work forward and get, kind of sharpen the pencil and see what we got to look at in the future, so.
And I really like the concept of this being an accessibility style park. I mean, we've put a lot of effort into making the sidewalks and the whole park itself accessible. So, expanding that further and just kind of going all in with the playground makes total sense to me. Just, do a little refinement and see what we can do to make it happen. So, as far as the playground, any other questions or comments on the playground? So I think that one's just kind of information, so the only actionable thing is the signage. So do we have any other comments on the signage? Moving back to that before we look for motion. No. Do we have a motion to approve the sign?
I'll make a motion to approve the sign and location.
Second?
All right, motion and a second. Any comments on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We have a sign.
All right, very
Again,
good.
we'll continue the work on the playground.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to the new 8A, resignation of board member. Troy, we'll let you take the floor.
Okay, so at 5:15 today, that will be my 5:20 maybe. I will be resigning. I've actually been trying to do this, and then Kevin beat me to it. He was resigning, so I was planning to do this months ago, but then when you get tied up and stuff, it's like I didn't want to do that until we had at least got through the ski loons and some of those issues, and but I just have, I have too many irons in the fire. Me having to leave every Tuesday because of another commitment is, not fair to the city, not fair to the park board. But, it's been a good run for me, and, I've given it what I've had. But even, I'm looking at this, it's time, because I was looking at the sidewalk in Kiwanis. I was like, well, you better wait till the sidewalk's in, and I'm thinking, I'll bet it's in. I haven't even been down there to look at it. I bet it's probably in, because we put that, they put those things in there last year, so I know it's in. But to me, that was like, it's time, because, I don't have the time that I used to go to the parks and look things over and watch Troy Harris and his crew and give them a hard time about, what are you guys doing over there? But anyway, it's been great for me, and it's time for me to walk away. And I have other things that I've prioritized, and you guys have all been great. And Paul, I think you're a great addition to this. Don't think my timing has anything to do with I'm out of here.
It's a little
Like,
suspicious, but.
that Sandy guy? Oh, come on. But it doesn't. I think it's wonderful that you joined the park board, and you bring a lot of insight, and you guys have a lot of character and charisma and care about why you're here. And so kudos to you. It's been great working with all of you, and Jesse and Catherine. So you know, I leave with a sad heart, but also a glad heart in the same time, is that I know I always have this guilt about, oh, I don't have the time to do it, so guilt's gone at 5:20 today, 5:15, but thank you all for all you've done while you're here.
Thank you so much, Troy. I mean, like, me personally, like I said, came on last year. I mean, you've been a really great, not like, I guess in some ways a mentor. You bring a lot of like the recreation experience that I didn't really have as far as your relationship to baseball and all those youth activities. So it's been a great asset for me and a lot of knowledge that you've passed on in that element. So I do appreciate your time as well. So. Any comments on Troy's resignation? I mean,
Just that I think you've tackled some of the really hard things, Troy. You did the Skeelan's research, even back to Lyman P. White. You were kind of liaison to that committee and got it in good shape and moving along. So done a lot of hard stuff and done a good job with it. So
Appreciate it. I won't get your name out.
Like, now I don't have to worry about that.
wow.
I
tried.
he's taking up the mantle.
Yeah, I tried.
But no, you like always had another way to look at things that I was like, oh yeah, okay. So that's, yeah, you brought a lot, just like these guys said, we'll miss you, but yeah, you did a lot for the city and for the parks and for baseball, it sounds like too. I mean, I don't know if you're gonna still be involved with that, but.
Well, I'll talk about, I was gonna mention, you can tell Haley, because I do have a good communication with the Baseball Association and a lot of those people. If she needs help with something and any communication there, Troy Harris, tell him if he needs to, because a lot of times he'll call me and ask me to kind of be a liaison to some things that are going on. I will still do that, so let them know that, if nothing else, someone to bridge a gap there, I'll do that for them, but.
Thank you so much, Troy. Really do appreciate it. You've been great. But let's go back to business, shall we? New 8B. We will talk about the event application for, is it Dangy 5K or the Dangy 5K? I'm not sure, but take it away, Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So attached is the application for Let's Go with Dangy 5K. On Saturday, June 22nd, it's 5K that starts over at Kiwanis Park, goes on the Boom Lake Trail through Rotary Park. Roughly about 60 people, morning run from 8 a.m. till noon. They use the pavilion for TV, kind of keeps the time as well as a stereo at the microphone. The council did approve this for use of the parking lot up on top, and staff is just recommending that the park board approves the application under the condition that they remove any of their banners and signs after the event concludes.
Thank you, Jesse. Any comments on this event application?
This has been my time in Jesse's shoes. This has been a really successful event, and we've had no issues in that time, so I don't have any other comments besides that.
Any other comments or questions about the event application?
Seems great.
Seems great. Yeah, that's what I thought too. We need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second, Rushmeyer.
Oh my gosh, we have a
I
motion.
gotta get a couple motions.
Motion and a second on the event application. You get the stats, pad the stats at the end, yeah. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor of approving the event application, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. They're good to go. Moving on to the Gregory Park request from the Northside Residents Association. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Council President Kelly Bevins, on behalf of the Northside Residents Association, sent in two requests for the north side of Gregory Park. One was some signage for enforcing leash laws and picking up after your pets. Another one was installation of boulders to protect the archway on the north end of the parks. Staff reviewed both of the requests. We've obviously had a few different discussions about pets, leashing, pet waste, and I think Gregory is not isolated for parks in general for pet waste and the issues we've continued to have there. Something that we would rather see is maybe some temporary chloroplast signs, kind of like yard signs that we could just plaster throughout the park system as maybe kind of a push as just public awareness that you need to pick up after your pet. I don't think that there's a huge value to permanent signage. People aren't really paying attention to it much, even with the pet waste containers and the bags all over the place, as expensive as those are. We could do that as trying to make it a push for public awareness. As for the boulders on the north side of the park, we can put them out if the park board wishes so. We haven't had a history of crashes out there, and I did measure it out. It's roughly 30 feet or more to those archways, so I think it would be a pretty low risk of somebody actually hitting it. It's not a zero risk, but I think it's pretty low risk. But we can put boulders over there if the park board wants to see us do that for protection. And we'd be looking for some direction from the park board on how you like to address those two items.
Well, item one, are we actually enforcing leash laws before we place signage? Leash laws, sorry, not leash laws, yep, leash laws, yeah. Are we actually enforcing leash laws? And if we're gonna plaster our park system with signage that we do enforce leash laws, is it some sort of initiative, or are we actually just building awareness and hoping people will pick up their waste, I think is my primary question. Because, I mean, if we have community police going around and ticketing people for not picking up their dog poo and stuff, I'm totally good. If we have an initiative to push here, that's totally fine. But the more signs that we continue to place, I mean, it just is, I don't know. My opinion on it is, if we're going to enforce it, let's enforce it, you know? I don't know. I'm just not sure. So, other comments? I mean, I know this park's a little closer to your, in your neck of the woods. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's certainly poop in all places in Gregory. I'm kind of with you in that. Like, I don't know that we have the resources to enforce this seriously, and so. Yeah, if we have signs, clearly, right, it's not stopping people just walking away as it is today. And so, like, do we want a community service officer in the parks a lot of the time? I don't know that that's the best use of their time. We're obviously not in the police department, but I struggle to see how enforcing that is going to generate a lot of goodwill towards the parks either. Like, oh, I went to the park with my dog and got a ticket. I mean, yes, you did, right? Have your dog poop in the park, which is not good, but it also is a problem. Like, I'm not trying to minimize it because it's not pleasant. But yeah, there's poop. I'm in Triangle almost every day, and there's poop under the sign that has the bag dispenser on it. So yeah, I'm not sure what we can do, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, Troy.
Yeah, I think you guys know my opinion on more signs. And I witnessed this last year. I think I brought it to the park board meeting one time, was, watching people just go out there and let their dog poop and away they go. And so, it's too bad. And, as odd as this sounds, I don't know how many people are in the Gregory Park North Side Residents Association. But, some of it might be, not that I'm advocating conflict or, but develop a neighborhood poop watch program or something. But what I'm really saying is, if they see someone that's doing this, say something. Maybe go back to their association and say, hey, it's gonna be up to us, because, signs aren't gonna do it, I don't think. I don't think it's the answer. And you just have to get people in that neighborhood aware that other people are watching, and, just do diligence and pick up after your dog. I mean, but it might just take some people calling them out on it, and maybe they can get some vests that say I'm in the neighborhood poop watch program. I'm gonna get really creative here in my last.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
fire it up.
and, yeah,
Yeah, that's just, I mean, that's my opinion on it. I mean, if the signage is there, you know, and it's an initiative that we're, as a city, pushing, like we're cracking down on dog waste in our park system, I think it's a whole different situation, Jesse.
I'm not going to speak for Chief Davis, but I know I can coordinate with him on what their resources would be. But I do know that he definitely leans education over enforcement. So if this is something that we want to make as an initiative of putting these signs out there, it might be something that we would kind of team up with them and maybe their CSOs of going out there and trying to educate people, and maybe they're dedicating some CSO efforts on chatting with those people if they see it, that they're reminding those folks that this is
If we're
these are
spending,
the rules.
we're spending money on this, I would like that to be a full thing. I just want to place signs that people are going to ignore. Like, if we're going to help educate the public and change the culture of the way people use and use our park system and not leave dog waste in it, I think that's totally acceptable. Like, we just need to change the behavior, like the culture of it all, right? The behavior is not great, you know, but let's, you know, try to get folks, you know, on board with it instead of just telling them you can't do it. You know, I just don't think signage is necessarily enough. So yeah, if we can do some sort of coordination, I mean, we don't need to post up somebody on every side of Gregory Park to stop them from, you know, from having people poop in well, people too, but their dogs pooping in the park, you know. But we do need something that helps build that goodwill and get people to kind of be more on that side of things. So, and signage just isn't enough, I don't think.
One way I was thinking about more of a citywide kind of effort, and this probably helps with, you know, Jesse, I know you were talking about stormwater stuff, even like a BPU insert in their mailer or in their bills that go out to every resident in the city, you know, just something about pet waste and how it affects stormwater and the laws that revolve around animals at large in the city, and you're supposed to have your dogs or cats or whatever on leashes at all times, so otherwise it's considered at large. Just an awareness thing that you're not supposed to let your dog off the leash and you're supposed to pick up after it. The BPU insert has always been a good way of reaching the whole city audience, and it's a very reasonable way to do that because you print off one sheet of paper and you can cut it into 4 and slip it in an envelope. And it's a good public awareness kind of campaign.
Yeah, I'm with Paul on this one too. Like, I think let's maybe flesh out just some sort of initiative that tackles this, maybe even on a citywide level, but more specifically in the park system here. Like, you know, like,
I think it's a problem in every park.
yeah,
so I mean,
it's definitely an issue everywhere. But you know, so citywide, I mean, let's just find some more alternatives. I mean, we can put the signage out, but you know, let's have it be part of an overarching strategy to reduce this across the city, not just in Gregory Park or, you know, JC's Park next to me or whatever. Like, let's try to get people's minds a little. If we can change 2 people's minds, we're doing a great job. So spending money on signage, we can spend it on paper inserts and other social media awareness and things like that for low to no cost by comparison to signage. So if we got to go that far, we got to go that far. But I just think let's try to come up with an overarching initiative here that slows this down for us, or at least tackles it and tries. But signage just isn't really the answer most of the time. So you may.
I love the idea of the inserts, but we could also do something maybe with like the community ed book. Why couldn't we put an ad in there? People are flipping through that. And again, I don't know if they'll read it, but maybe they'll be reminded. Or we could get really creative and use the new Minnesota slogan and do something really goofy with the Timberwolves sky. Can I say those words? On YouTube.
Bring yo bags.
Yeah. You could do something goofy with that. I don't know. Makes people smile and then be like,
could.
oh, yeah, maybe I should pick up my dog's poop. We'll start with the community ed book. But that could be really
It's a
funny,
good thought,
too.
though.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, something very topical and trendy.
Task the mayor with putting it on the sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right, yeah. and
Park, no.
I think the folks that
Yeah.
are ignoring those leash laws are the same people that are gonna ignore signage in the park. It's not that they're forgetting that they can't, they have to pick up after their dog, they just don't do it, so, I think that's maybe a better direction for item one at least, the creation of some sort of initiative citywide.
Citywide poop week.
Yep.
Poop awareness week.
National.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look.
The paw,
There we go.
wow. Troy, you're just absolutely slaying it.
I might leave right now.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you peaked. So is that enough, like general direction on that, Jesse? I mean,
Sounds like BPU mailers, and I can maybe work with Chief Davis on maybe some targeted CSO education efforts out in the parks too, if they have some resources available. Maybe on some evenings and stuff when people are out there walking dogs,
yeah, let's just
just to
cook
help with the
on,
education.
Yeah, let's cook on social media about it too. Like, let's just, that's folks read our stuff, so let's just try to continue to educate and.
April 1st through the 7th every year is to educate pet owners on the importance of cleaning up after their dogs. It's
So
not
we
till
missed
next
paw.
April,
We
but
missed Paw Week
We missed Paw Week, but
next year.
next, yeah. Sorry, non-ciders. Yeah, too late. And then as far as the boulders on Holly Street, comments on the boulders again, your neighborhood, your neck of the woods, thoughts on the boulders. Not to put you on the spot, get everybody mad at you, but
So I went back and I watched the presentation we had from these folks a couple of years ago now. Their concept then was to beautify that, make it a really magnificent view, and so I'm not sure that boulders align with that vision.
We removed some signage at that location.
The reflector, yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm a little confused because boulders would certainly, I guess, stop a car, but if the long-term goal is to beautify it, I don't know that we want to put boulders in only to take them out later. So I guess I'm a little confused about the direction they're looking to go with that. And I mean, to Jesse's point, it's 30 feet away. If you're gonna hit it, you're gonna hit it. But also it's stone, so I like its odds.
yeah. And I think on the topic of the planters too, I mean, was that part of the, I don't know anything about planters around the arch or whatever it may have
I think the
been.
planters existed and they were kind of going into disrepair, so they got removed at some point.
Sure.
And they kind of provided a natural barrier, but they weren't necessarily going to stop a car. To me, this issue seems like we're trying to prevent an issue that doesn't exist yet. There, to Jesse's point, there hasn't been any reported accidents, incidents, or anything with this, and unless we have some information to kind of base our decision on about close calls or people driving in the boulevard, I guess placing boulders, to Andrew's point, is going against kind of what they had originally wanted for that area with beautification and having that view shed through the archway, and that'll just kind of go backwards to where we were with the reflector sign.
When I drove past it, I could see where, I guess if you were on that straightaway and you weren't from around here, maybe you think you can drive straight forward and through the park, maybe, but I just didn't, again, I'm from around here, so I'm biased, but I don't see the chance of somebody ripping that thing at 40 miles an hour and.
Well, the other part of that is what if they do? What if someone has a stroke or a heart attack or some medical condition? And if it was me, I'd rather hit the wall than a boulder. And, the wall can be replaced and the boulder's a little even more stout than that wall probably, but it's never happened. We could put something up to prevent it from falling if an earthquake came too, but I don't know that we need to do that. We haven't had any here. So, history says, to me personally, I don't live over there, but I've been to that park a lot, and I think boulders would not look very nice. I don't think they'd look good.
I'm with you on that one. I think the boulders are not necessary. Planters coming back, I don't know. That's a discussion, an actual discussion. I think the planters wouldn't necessarily be all that bad, but,
Like a visual barrier
Yeah.
instead of a physical barrier.
Yeah, you're looking down it and you're saying, okay, well, I shouldn't be driving to that. Yeah, I should not go that way. I mean, that's fine. You know, that solves that problem a little bit more. Because that's the only reason I could see having boulders there. It's just somebody coming straight on that just doesn't know that they can't drive through it. So visually making it so they know you can't drive through it instead of trying to block them off. Because you're not going to be going super fast down that road, and the trees come up on you quick anyway. So it's not likely somebody's going to drive into the park. It's never happened. So planters, though, I mean,
What about just trees lining each side of the sidewalk?
correct, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, can you put 3 trees on each side of the sidewalk? It doesn't block the view shed, but it's pretty evident that you can't drive through there because there's trees in the way. And that still provides shade on the sidewalk. It provides that view shed still. It's not rocks.
Yeah, but I think that was part of getting refurbishing that stone arch and that wall, was to be able to see it. And then if we, even with the planter, if you come along and cover that up, then you don't get a good look at it either, so.
I think the general idea here is no boulders, and we wouldn't mind alternatives to visually deter people from driving in there to reduce the chance that happens from 0.1% to 0, or 0.2% to 0.1%. So, yeah, if we can come back with something that, you know, is low to no cost, like these planters or how we'd like to see it, that gives a better indication, I think I'd be open to adding something additional in as far as beautification to the archway. That also is an indicator that don't drive here type of thing. But boulders are not the solution, in my opinion. So, any other discussion on either item? I think you have a general direction for item 1 and item 2. We can reach out to the Northside Association, and if they have any other ideas, they can ship them back. But boulders are not. I think that's it. Andrew.
Just for item 1, I know we got onto the pet waste more, but I think also making sure we're talking about the leash laws too.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I forget who was here, but about Rotary and the dogs down
Yep.
there with wildlife.
Yep.
So I think that's good to remind folks too.
Yep. Yeah, it's leash laws and pick it up.
Running at large prohibited, section 900.03 of the city code.
Running at large.
We did install those 2 signs.
Yeah, in Rotary, yeah.
Oh, cool.
They are permanent fixtures down there, but
That's probably where they got.
we
the
don't want to, yeah, well, yeah, from the signs. Yeah, so the argument would be temporary better, but, yeah, we don't necessarily, let's put an initiative together for all of that. Let's just, a pet awareness week or within the park system or something, but, yeah, so we want those signs to come down eventually in Rotary, period. So let's just try to, I think, item 1, let's just have a full initiative, leash and pet waste, taken care of, in some sort of campaign, citywide. And then, yeah, item 2, no boulders, open to other ideas. Any other questions or comments on either of these 2 items? No? Very good. We will move on to the next item. What is it? The pavilion proposal, correct? Yes, okay. Jesse, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Pavilion 2 was the one that we elected to keep in the 2024 capital budget. We requested proposals from 2 different vendors. We were only able to get a proposal from one vendor, and that was High Tech. The proposal was for $38,500. I do want to note that it was a little bit different from the scope of work that we did send out. Did have them reach out and let me know that the corn cob blasting, he had spoken with a couple different painters about that part of it, and both painters felt that was a little bit excessive, and that just power blasting was going to be enough, or power washing was going to be enough to prep that surface for painting. So they did not include that with their bid. If we really want to go that route, we can. It's probably going to be in the realm of a few extra $1,000 to add that to it, but they wouldn't recommend it. They feel like it would be an unneeded expense. But with that, including the work for TWM to prepare the scope and plans, that would bring the total cost to $45,000. As a reminder, we had a total budget of $60,000. We are recommending approval of the bid from High Tech for $38,500. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jesse. Questions or comments for Jesse about Pavilion 2? Troy?
So, just in lieu of the cob blasting, to speak to that, I used to have a sandblasting business and done cob blasting and worked with a lot of wood, a lot of metal. And to me, that, I think they're right. That just seems like overkill for that. I mean, if you wanted to blast something, sandblast the metal posts and paint it, because then the paint's gonna stick. It's really gonna stick. So you get more bang for your buck and it'll be done, and someone could come and do that. I know the guy who does it here, and so it still might not be cheap, but that might be a better option for, I don't know what kind of shape the steel posts are in. They're probably decent, but I would agree with their note here that it seems excessive.
Thank you, Troy. Any other comments or questions about Pavilion 2 and the bid?
Lines up with kind of where we had landed, one or two, I don't know, whenever we talked about it. Troy, it's not literally corn cobs, right?
Yeah, it is, yeah. They're just ground up. Usually on wood lots, so it doesn't, like, if you sandblast wood, it'll just,
It's used for like log homes and things, for refinishing log homes and
so corn cob and
air.
soda.
Oh.
Another form, but
Jesse?
If the park board wants to entertain, because the cost is considerably lower than the total budget, something that we discovered as I went through Lum Park and identified a handful of the different dead trees through that park with our 2 tree inspectors. There's quite a bit of dead trees in that park. There's probably at least 2 dozen that are probably needing to be removed. We could potentially use some of those dollars towards some additional tree replacement throughout that park, if that's something that the park board would like to elect for.
Always a good investment, I think. So I'm on board with that immediately, yeah. Any other questions on the bid?
To Jesse's point, would we be able to use some of that money for the other pavilion, for touch-up paint or kind of anything we could do to keep it in better shape?
I'd have to look at the scope of work and where the breakdown is. I'm sure that there's probably some painting that we could do for $15,000 too, but I'm not sure how much we could get done for $15,000. That's a pretty big
rough,
pavilion.
I think, isn't it?
Hmm?
I think that other pavilion's in pretty rough shape, but it's worth looking at for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I think we're in agreement that we want to do Pavilion 2, and then I guess as far as what to do with the rest of the funds, let's explore what we can get done for the remaining budgeted money on Pavilion 1, and then if not, probably pump them into trees would be my guess. So, can we get a motion to approve the proposal?
I'll make a motion to approve the proposal or quote from High Tech Construction in the amount of $38,500 with the scope of work for Lum Park Pavilion number 2.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further comments or questions about the motion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We're fixing it up. So we'll move on to the,
I'm going to
Yes.
abstain from any discussion or anything on this next item or voting.
you betcha. All right, so we'll move on to the approval of Parks ARPA construction staking proposal. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the award of the contractor on the Parks ARPA projects, Now that we have a better understanding of what his intent is with construction availability or construction schedule, we most likely don't have the staff availability to be able to perform the construction staking in-house. So we went out and requested a couple of proposals for construction staking services and a little bit of construction observation during the project. And we went with WSB and Widseth for this. We did get both proposals. Both are included with the packet. We did review both proposals. We felt like both had a good understanding of the project and what was going to be needed for the project, in that they have an understanding of what Al DeChantel's scope of work and his rough timeline is looking like it's going to be throughout the summer. So we felt like both proposals were responsive. And so with that, we are recommending award of the construction staking proposal to WSB in the amount of $18,584. And I can answer questions.
Thank you, Jesse. Questions for Jesse on the proposals?
I have one. How can the prices be so different? I mean, it's like almost like half.
Quite a bit more hours in Widseth's proposal.
Yeah.
A lot more project management. There's a little bit less. WSB has a lot more from Eric to Smith in here. Very capable, very knowledgeable with our system. I believe he's going to do just fine with what the scope of work is going to be with this work. So he's not going to be at that higher rate as some of the other people that Widseth was proposing in here. So that's where a lot of those dollars are going to change.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, but I was just like, wow, that's such a huge difference. But and then one more silly question, maybe not silly, but so if for our other projects we had the city like plan out, like your team planned out and like put, is it like literal stakes, like, and show the construction team where to work? Is that what they're doing? Yeah. So. Yeah, so like your team did that before for other projects, but they're busy now, obviously but normally your team does that, or like the city team does that.
Before we go for proposals, I wanted to see who the contractor was going to be and get an idea of his timeline. If he was going to wait until the fall before starting any of the work, it would have been possible that some of our engineering staff would have been available in the fall after the reconstruction project that they're working on currently would have been completed. But based on the conversations with him, he's going to try and squeeze it in between pieces of that. So they're going to be far too busy with the reconstruction project to be able to pull out and go over to the parks projects in between. So we just can't commit them to run that project that way. But had he tried to do it all at once after the reconstruction, then maybe it looked a little bit different. So we wanted to wait until we had an understanding of what his timeline was, or once we had the contractor, before we went and found proposals for engineering services.
Oh, that makes sense. That's great. I'm just like learning more. I didn't realize that was something that we did if we could. So, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional comments or questions for Jesse on the proposals?
I do, I just have
Yeah,
comment.
sure.
And so I just want to make sure that, and Jet, or Paul, I hold your integrity, I trust completely. And even though you're wearing that hat, but I'm kidding. But I just, I know in that Lyman Dahl project, we got nailed with a lot of engineering change orders. And these are different projects and, I think less of a scope, but there's still some decent grading and some things that have to take place in these projects. And I just want to make sure that it's at 18 and then we're not at 32,000 in change orders when it's all done, because we didn't see the full scope of it. And so, I had, to me, as a park board member for another 5 minutes or whatever, I got to ask that question because I know you said you're going to abstain, but I think that's important that we make sure that, I'm just going off past experience with the Lyman White or what, right?
Yeah.
And so, and you didn't kind of come into those discussions until closer to the end of that deal, and, so.
Oh, Jesse, yeah.
So I can add something to that. It is a risk when you award a proposal with lesser hours, because you really don't know what's going to happen with the contractor. Marks can get knocked out by the contractor and they have to get remarked, and those take more hours. The contractor's means and methods might take them longer. It takes more hours. You don't necessarily know those things. I think both of these proposals accurately understand DeChantel and his means and methods and how he operates. So I think that they've kind of addressed that in these proposals. But you are still estimating and predicting those things, and there's no guarantee that it's going to go exactly according to how you predict. You can go the safer bet and award the contract to a higher amount of hours, and you are safer that you're not going to see an amendment. Ultimately, you are going to pay, or you should be paying for the hours that somebody has to spend out on the site, because you're paying for a service. So if they have to spend 10 hours, you should be paying them for 10 hours out on the site because you need them for that service. It's not much different than when you pay for a plumber, even though they quote you for 2 hours and they realize that something didn't fit right and they had to spend 4 hours. You're probably going to see a bill for the 4 hours. So, we're doing our best to estimate how that construction project's going to go. And I understand the previous history with what happened at Lyman P. White. Obviously, they have to do their best to try and predict how this project is going to progress. And again, looking at both proposals, I feel like both of them had a good understanding of what was going to be needed. I know there's quite a bit of difference in hours, but I think that either one would be able to sufficiently stake the project and get it done properly.
I had a similar thought to Troy over the weekend of, right, is this enough? And kind of my assessment was this seems less complex than some of the Lyman P. White stuff with like the fancy concrete we did. Jesse, do you see any work in any of these three projects that is kind of complex enough to maybe get out of hand, like some of the concrete pouring was with Lyman P. White that I think caused a lot of those overages?
No, not at all, actually. The beach is probably the most complex out of the three. JC is obviously the most simplistic because it's really just grading, and then there's a little bit of path work. So that's very simplistic. The campground is grading. Obviously, the water and electrical services are a little bit more involved in JC's, but that's pretty simplistic in itself too. The beach is probably the most complicated out of all of it, but that also is pretty simplistic, and there's going to be a lot of field fitting. I think what I mentioned to both proposers in there is as they're pulling down the old building, where we have the foot washing station drawn in the plans, if they dig down, they find the water supply line over 2 feet. Well, we're not going to reroute the water line. We're going to move the foot washing station over 2 feet because nobody's going to know the difference between it being here or here. So there might be a little bit of just small field adjustments, and we're going to try and stake the project the best we can and get them an idea, but we have the plans there to get the idea of what the park board wants to get out there from a vision standpoint, and I think we're going to be able to construct the project accordingly. So I don't think that there's really any real complication from any of the three projects that's going to pose a high risk for that kind of an issue.
Awesome, thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Jesse on the proposals?
One last motion in.
Yeah, let's do it. We got a minute.
Yep, we do. Less than a minute. Fire it off.
Do your last
Motion
motion.
to accept the proposal from WSB.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any further discussions on the motion? Hearing none. Yes, Jesse?
It may be bad timing, but I will note that I had to stake the trees in JC's 3 times before we planted them. But last year. But we should be fine. As long as we're really measured about how we stake the projects, we're going to be okay.
Alrighty. Motion.
We should be fine.
Amendment? No. Motion and a second. Any other conversation, discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Jesse? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are staking it. Thank you, Troy. Have a great
Troy.
evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Troy.
Hey, Troy.
See you, Mrs. Shaver.
Yep. See ya. Thank you.
See you, man.
See you. See you later, Troy. See ya.
Good luck, you guys.
Alrighty. We will move on to the ARPA change orders. Is that where we're at? ARPA change orders. Jesse?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Winkleman of the Rotary Club would like to present to a joint meeting of the...
Oh,
One-
ARPA change orders. One
skip-
more.
Oh, I'm
Yep.
sorry. Did I skip one?
Yep.
I apologize.
Yep.
So at the special meeting, we awarded the ARPA projects over to DeChantel. We kind of talked a little bit about this. We do have a little bit of a budget availability, and I included some things to just note that we do have some budget availability, but we want to reserve some of that availability for some of these things before we include a bunch of extra changes into that contract. Some of those things would be the construction staking proposal that the park board just elected to award to WSB, so the 18,000 and change. The installation of the electrical service for the campground, so BPU has estimated that to be probably no more than $15,000. We'll get close when we get closer to that and order some of the materials. They'll have a better idea of what that's actually going to cost. And then just contingency for any unforeseen expenses. So this is generally about 5% of the bid. Again, this is probably a low risk for a lot of overruns. I'm thinking the 22,000 is an aggressive contingency on this type of a project, but it's good to have it there just in case something comes up. So it's just something that you kind of keep reserved there. So after you keep those expenses out of there, you have about $6,600 in available expenses towards some additional changes. We priced out a few different additional changes that the park board could consider. You can include additional sidewalk replacement from the parking lot up to Pavilion 1. I think I roughed it up at about 400 square feet, if I remember correctly. 425 square feet of sidewalk replacement. And I think I was trying to get all the way up to the green block wall. It doesn't get you all the way in there, but then you're getting into a lot more slab work. So I just tried to get up to the green block wall. And that's roughly about $3,600. As your contingencies, you kind of determine that you don't need that $22,000 or the full $22,000. Maybe as you're completing some of the work, you could include maybe 2 inches of gravel base, adding it to the roadway of the existing campground. It is a little bit low. It could probably use a new resurfacing of gravel in there. I'm not sure. Paul probably could tell me the last time that's got a surface of gravel. It's
Wasn't
probably
my
been
time, put it that way.
some time a while ago. But 2 inches of gravel base would not hurt that roadway to just kind of give it an extra little beefing. And then the other part of it would be 6 inches of gravel base replacement in the existing campsites. You'll notice in our plans, we do have 12 inches of class 5 going into all the new sites. I did highlight a couple pictures of our existing sites. Some of them do have a small pad of gravel. Some of them have none. And we actually ended up just having somebody towed out of that site specifically. They got kind of sunk in there after that 1-inch rain we got, was it last week? So, that would be one thing that we could do is those 18 different sites, we could dig them out and throw 6 inches of gravel base, and then we don't have issues like that. And then all of our 21 or 22 sites then will have some sort of a nice gravel pad. for them. But again, because of the estimate here of almost $15,000, you really wouldn't be able to start tackling that until you know you don't need that contingency fund. Another thing would be any remaining funds you could utilize towards, again, tree plantings in Lum Park if we're going to be losing as many as we potentially could from all the dead trees that are out there. We did look into the level 2 EV charging station. I did put that in the the Excel file. The electrical hookup is roughly about $10,000. That's kind of a number that we got a ballpark from both an electrician as well as BPU. Is 10,000 is kind of in the ballpark. Looking around online, the level 2s are probably in the realm of about $5,000. I'm not a really good judge of quality. I know I saw some for less. I know I saw some for more. So it's really tough for me to judge quality of what's appropriate for those. I know the BPU Commission is exploring charging stations throughout town more and is going to have more discussions with the Parking Commission about where to put, I think, specifically high-speed charging stations. But they're still in that process. Looking at that, I think that we'd probably want to hold off on those. At least that would be my recommendation until they've had those discussions with them on where they'd like to place them at this time. But with the new electrical service for the campsites that BP will be putting in, there will be sufficient space that if we want to in the future, we would be able to add like a level 2 charging station to that. And that's something that we could set up for future if we so choose. But with that, staff would recommend the additional work to be prioritized and listed as follows. So one would be right now to just right away include the sidewalk replacement from the beach parking lot to Pavilion 1. And then again, as the contingency is no longer needed, to include the gravel base, both in the roadway as well as the campsites in the existing campground. And we would just coordinate with DeChantel, because it would obviously be during the existing use of the season, and maybe he tries to do that more in the fall shoulder season. And then everything else would be additional tree replacement throughout the park.
Thank you, Jesse. So yeah, I'm just want to make sure I fully understand. So we'll have $6,600 left over on this project, just period, estimated, and then 22 grand in what would be contingency. And so we're just kind of going down and saying, okay, we can replace the sidewalk with the 6,600. And then if we don't need to use that contingency, we'll fire off some of those gravel adjustments and tree replacement. That's my understanding.
Yes, sir. So if you add the two together, you're looking at about 18.3, 18.4 between the gravel and the sidewalk. That still leaves you another roughly $10,000. Let's say you don't use any of the contingency. That leaves you roughly another $10,000. And that hammers out about maybe 14 different trees that you could potentially plant. Sure. But again, depending on how much of the contingency, maybe it's not 14 trees, maybe it's 8 or 9 trees, but you just exhaust the rest of the budget towards trees.
I like the plan. Paul?
I just had one question with the sidewalk replacement, Jesse. I know that side is very steep over there, and you know what's underneath that slab and the wall that's there, or why that wall is there, and is there a way to make that, the grade difference from the lake up to the pavilion's quite significant? I don't know if we'll be able to get running slope to make that an ADA compliant sidewalk without including landings on the way up. And then can we change the grading around a little bit around that side of the pavilion to get that ADA compliant and not have that weird concrete hump up to the grade of the pavilion?
We'd have to do quite a bit more removal.
Grading.
Yep.
Removal.
You're talking quite a few, probably like another $3,000 to do a little bit more, which we could do. I'm not sure what's underneath there. And I suppose it would be really difficult to know until you start digging it up, because it looks
Yeah, I
pretty
think
old.
we'd have to commit to it. I think it would just be a much longer term improvement than just butting up a brand new sidewalk to a humped up piece of concrete that doesn't provide any wheelchair access or easy
No, it would be much like Kiwanis, where we know that the ramp right now going from the parking lot down to the pavilion is it's just too much grade to make up without making basically a big zigzag walkway all the way up to it. This is kind of the same deal, unless we were to make a big zigzag walkway all the way up to it. It would not be compliant. Now, we could eventually use some ADA dollars, and it is something on my list for the next park board meeting of identifying our 2024 ADA dollars, is making an ADA connection maybe up to would be the south, over towards the restroom or the the shower building to Pavilion 1, and that could be the ADA accessible path to the pavilion. But we could potentially just replace this with the newer sidewalk and get this one a little bit less sloped, I guess, at least going into the pavilion.
I don't remember what the rules are around running slope, but you can have a certain distance,
I believe it's 30 feet.
30 feet, then you have to have a landing. And I don't know if that would even work because you still have to meet a minimum or a maximum running slope.
Yes, it's
8.33%.
8 1/3, and that might even be, because then there's a different trigger,
Yeah.
because that might even be 15 then if you're going that full max slope.
But I still think it would be beneficial to at least try to grade something there and get rid of that block. I mean, I don't know what purpose that block wall serves right there, but it's kind of an eyesore, and it just, and it's even hard to walk up. You know, I've been there multiple times, and that slope, that concrete slope, is just not. So, I just, you know, looking long term, does it make sense to do it while we have a contractor there right now and just remove that whole thing, have them grade it out, nice slopes, and then bring the sidewalk all the way up?
You have the right contractor to do that.
Yeah.
If that's the park board would like to do, is pull all of that out and grade that out. Again, once you're beyond the green wall, you're into the full slab. You can't really correct inside the pavilion, but everything outside the pavilion you can correct. It's just you won't know until you start digging into it how much you're getting into.
And the other side actually has stairs, right? So
Yes.
that's not even a wheelchair.
Correct.
You couldn't even get a wheelchair in there. So this is like
The
the entrance for anyone that has a disability.
Yeah, I like that a ton. So I think as far as what we would try to do then is prioritize the dollars here. Try to work the gravel in if we don't run into any sort of trouble digging this up, and then prioritize the rest of them dollars to trees. I think that sounds about right. I like that a ton.
Yeah, like that too.
Yep.
Very good.
I wondered what it was, but I didn't want to sound like a girl and be like, what is that green wall for? So thanks for bringing it up, Paul. You can't be scared to ask.
It's something to
stupid
break your
questions.
knees on.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense
Or
to me.
skateboard, I guess.
Yeah.
Paul, you don't think that's doweled to that block wall, do you?
It might be, but I mean,
Like underneath?
I hope not. I don't know.
it looks to me like they just came in there and poured concrete in and smoothed it out, to be honest. I guess we'll see. Move with care is what we'll tell Mr. DeChantel.
It's like it was poured so you could drive into the pavilion, like the sloping
A
on the
driveway.
sides.
And then they,
right, and it's
and
just
then
a
they put a wall.
blockade, yeah.
They put a wall up to
They could
say,
have just put boulders.
yeah.
Is that Kevin Yeager in a past life?
Oh, no.
Well, I think any more comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll be looking for a motion, or I think, right? Yeah, to allocate these funds.
I can make a motion to allocate the additional, or I could call them excess funds, for the parks ARPA projects to, number one, replacing the sidewalk up to Pavilion 1 and removing the wall and slab and grading that, however you want to wordsmith that, Jesse, to make it more accessible. Number two is to replace gravel on the entrance road and the campsites at the existing campground, and number 3 would be the remaining funds get used towards tree replacement in Lone Park.
I'm thinking that, I'm guessing you're asking what site, if you want to do sites or entrance in priority?
Entrance first.
Entrance first.
I want to clarify the sidewalk piece. We're not talking about trying to make the running slope ADA compliant.
Correct.
Just the landing coming out of the pavilion, and then we're just going to replace the existing as it is, and just understand that it's not going to be compliant, and our future goals will be to get an ADA compliant sidewalk in the future.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
This way we have a better hookup to be more compliant, I suppose. So-
Thank you.
Okay, a second on that motion.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are spending money. Moving on to the Rotary Joint Meeting. Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I have the wrong page here. David Winkleman of the Rotary Club wants to present to a joint meeting of both the BPU Commission as well as the Park Board regarding the Rotary's Rotary Park Solar Project. Right now, they are proposing a date of Tuesday, June 4th at 4:30 p.m. I will let you know that the commission did meet this morning and approved that date and time for the joint meeting. So if you go ahead and elect that we can make that work. He's willing to present at that time to a joint meeting of both boards. And I can answer any questions. As a reminder, the last time that this was discussed was July 25th of last year.
Very good. Comments or questions for Jesse out the gate about the special meeting with the Public Utilities Commission? Andrew.
Jesse, what's changed since July of last year?
I haven't heard of anything that has changed since then, but I haven't been invited to those discussions, so it's possible that there's a different funding source on that. But to my knowledge, David is looking to have that discussion with both the commission as well as the park board in the same room to make sure that they're not getting two different messages, I guess. I think that was how it was discussed to me.
Yeah, I briefly talked with Dave Winkleman about this, and he addressed me about it, and I don't know what the meetings occurred, what was the last date this was occurred, July? So I wasn't a part of those meetings. As I approached both Jesse and Patrick Wassow over at BPU, Patrick asked for a potential joint meeting. I thought that was a good idea. It would help me to get some context, too, of the history of this discussion, so that's the genesis of this request.
Cool. Thank you.
Fair enough. Do we know if any of the concerns or comments that we had from July 25th of 2023 were addressed, or if this was just, I mean, because I know, having the conversations where we didn't have fiscal responsibility, we didn't want to have any of those liabilities, we didn't want to have to pay for it, that sort of thing. Do we have any affirmations or anything like that before walking into a meeting? I mean, it feels like we're just moving forward with this, but I'm not entirely sure that we've approved to, I guess getting BPU involved is a next step, but did we, I don't remember saying we definitely do it or have any other, the funding or anything like that. Those conversations have not happened, right, between now and then? I
can clarify that. So after this meeting on July 25th, an email was sent to John Forrest and Peter Nelson, who were the heads of the Rotary Club at the time, because I understand that they would have been the ones to approve anything through the club in regards to this. And those interests were shared with them as the park board was interested in this project under those conditions, that an agreement would have to be formed with those conditions of funding, responsibility, maintenance, and there have you. I did not receive a response on that in any affirmations, even to this date. So to my knowledge, I don't know if anything has changed So for this presentation, I will be interested to see here if something has changed, if there's a different approach, if there's a different funding mechanism. I haven't had that presentation, so your guess is as good as mine of what the fruits of this presentation will be. If there's more information, new information that they will have. But again, for the BPU commission, they obviously would have to be the ones to sign off on buying the power as well. So just as well that they are involved in the discussion. But no, as far as I understand, nothing has been approved by the park board, and I think Rotary Club understands that nothing has been approved to move anything forward at this time.
Okay. I think I wanted to set a precedent there that I just didn't think that we had, given a thumbs up or anything. So I just wanted to make sure that this next conversation was still considered to be exploratory in that sense, where, we're just trying to get everything straightened out, all the facts and information. Because again, part of their presentation was BPU buying some power back and having it be a conduit for the park itself, so it could be self-sustaining. So I understand the conversation with BPU being necessary. So, my assumption would be that that the conversation or the information that was provided was somewhat greenlit if they wanted to continue to have these conversations. But I do want to, I'm in favor of having this. It is very informative, but I just want to make sure, I guess, setting precedent here, or before we go into this, just knowing that there hasn't been any approval or anything like that committed to on our behalf. So, Kira.
I was gonna say, do we really need to be there yet? I mean, if they haven't presented to BPU yet, and BPU hasn't committed to paying or helping to pay for those or reimburse or however that is, like, don't we want to get their approval first and then they can bring it to us? Or if we've already sat through his presentation a year ago and we've never heard anything back, that anything has changed. And I'm just trying to be aware of our time. And if we're not sure if we're going to hear the same presentation again, do we need to be there?
I guess the question would be, do we all need to be there? Can we send one of us to attend this meeting as an information only and not take act? Because, what kind of action can we even take at a special meeting like this when we're not being presented the overarching strategy? So, I wouldn't mind sending, myself or somebody else to this commission meeting as, someone in the audience, I suppose, to hear the presentation to BPU, but I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure a joint meeting is entirely necessary for this, because I don't think we'd even take action that particular day either, so.
As a notice meeting, this will allow for a quorum of the board to be present and to be available and ask questions of the presenter, which you may not have an opportunity to ask questions after the fact, obviously. Sure. And we're going to make it a point that this is a recorded meeting, so you can always watch this afterwards. But again, you won't be provided the ability to ask questions of the presenter during the presentation off of the recording. To your point about taking action, I wouldn't recommend taking action at the presentation by any means. If there was something that the park board wanted to see as an actionable item, I would recommend taking that direction at the joint meeting for the following regular park board meeting, and we would have it on the agenda at that time. But that is something that was requested from the interim BPU director, is to establish this joint meeting to make sure that both boards were getting the same and similar information from the Rotary Club, to make sure that whatever information was being presented was the same information, so that they could make an informed decision.
Fair enough. Any other comments or questions on this special meeting with the Utilities Commission?
I'm not available that day, but if y'all want to meet, I will support it.
Can we, with Troy resigning, can we get 3? Will we be able to attend this meeting?
I'm available that day.
Okay.
I do have another meeting at 6:30.
Okay, so we will be able to attend, so we will have a motion then, I guess, for holding the special park board meeting on Tuesday, June 4th at 4:30 PM. We'll be looking for a motion.
So moved.
Seconded, so a motion and a second for the motion to approve a special board meeting, joint meeting with the Public Utilities Commission. Any further discussion on this meeting?
Oh, where's this at?
I was just gonna ask that.
Council chambers.
Council chambers, okay. And again, I think my only comment is I really want to stress that, this is an information only type meeting. I want to set expectations right away because, not hearing anything back, there's just no way we can make any sort of decision. So, again, information only type meeting. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We're meeting on the 4th. I think we're moving on to recreation staff reports. Oh, public forum, I'm sorry. Time allocated for citizens to bring matters not on the agenda to the board. We'll open it at 5:45. And we will close it at 5:45, seeing nobody in the audience. Now we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Dean.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, Haley was out sick today, so I will do my best to give her quick updates. We still are on pace for the fishing clinic. We are going to give the beach pavilion one last hurrah. We're going to hold the fishing clinic out of that building. So before that goes away, we're going to hold it in there. It is still planned for Saturday, June 8th. And we're kind of lining up the last of the volunteer folks to help us out with that. And that's going pretty well. I know he's hammering through that. I think you have the updates on the adult softball and pickleball in there. We were finally going to hold the early bird tournament for the first time, I think, in many years. And unfortunately, the weather didn't cooperate, and surprising enough, and had to cancel that. Surplus equipment. We did hold our shop to drop with the YMCA and Community Ed, and they didn't take as much as we were hoping.
They dropped.
So you have a few pictures here. This is kind of everything that still remains. So we are going to continue to work on how much we can get rid of, either through secondhand or BBBA or elsewhere. So
Can we open it to the public? Is that allowed? Can we just say, come on in and take some stuff? Is that?
I don't know if we can just open it to the public.
Okay.
I know we can open it to nonprofits, and we're going to try and work with the BBBA with them as well. But YN Community Ed, we're looking at some of the baseball pants too, potentially. So we're going to try and work on it. We really don't want anything to go to waste, but there's some outdated equipment that really isn't necessarily the safest anymore either. So that's why a lot of them didn't take any of that. So it's not surprising. We kind of knew that as we kind of went through there. It's like, this stuff is pretty old. So, yeah. That is what it is. We wanted to quick highlight the kayak rental. There was some delays, and I think it was the electronic pieces. So that got pushed back. They're hoping for June, but they're just kind of working on the process. I did kind of send them an email that they really need to expedite that. We don't want to lose too much time out of the season before they get that installed for us. So I'll keep you involved and up to date on that as soon as we hear something on installation for that. Concessions, we're really excited. We started using the tablet POS system, which has proved incredibly beneficial, not only just for credit cards, but inventory tracking, everything. All the transactions are kept right on there rather than the old tapes. That's really going to help make good informed decisions moving forward. So Haley's been really excited about using that software now and moving it forward. With that, you have the maintenance report. Let me see if there was anything else on the project side. We talked ARPA already. Staff is going to be working on the park pavilion at Buster here relatively soon. I know they're pretty busy trying to wrap up spring, and then obviously mowing has been going crazy with all the rain we've been getting. The disc golf course at Memorial, it's finally starting to take shape. The staff was digging out the tee boxes. We requested proposals from a handful of different flat work vendors. So we're going to try and get some concrete poured over there at the Memorial Park disc golf course. They're shooting for a July grand opening event. So we're hoping to get that kind of wrapped up before then. We do have all of the different baskets and stuff on hand. So we just got to get the concrete kind of done there. Anything else I needed to highlight there? I do want to mention the tree plantings for the stream bank restoration. It's going to probably wrap up most of it here today. If you haven't been out there, they're kind of really cranking out a lot of the new trees. It's actually, that whole area has been under quite a bit of activity, and we had Black Belts Don't Quit doing some volunteer work on the bridge. They are painting over the graffiti on the bridge this afternoon as well. So a lot of good things happening in that area just this afternoon. So with that, I can answer any other questions the park board may have.
Any questions for Jesse on any of the maintenance or maybe even the recreation, if you have any other questions? No? Alrighty. Well, we'll move on to board member reports then. We'll start with Paul.
I don't think I have anything. I do have one update. The Lyman P. White Park, the trees, the contractor that was responsible for planting those, we have quite a few dead ones. They're on the hook for 2 years. They plan on replacing those here in the next week or so. So those will get replaced at that time.
Good. And for me, I know, I've had conversations with specifically the graffiti, because you could see the graffiti on the bridge all the way from Rotary. It was pretty miserable. So again, on the Parks and Recreation Facebook page, Team Ascension out there painting over all of that graffiti. Really awesome. I don't know if you made that connection with those folks or whatever. These types of public works, awesome. Like, I love that sort of thing. So, because the graffiti was miserable. So, that's awesome. That really, really is awesome. Yep, we have on screen right now the work being done out there. So, really, really, really awesome. I really appreciate that. I love the, again, to your point, the stream bank restoration. Yep, the view sheds look awesome. We've been out taking a gander at those, and I know a few of those, like the light posts at Lyman P, the little kind of hang, where the flags, probably where we would put a flag or something like that, banner type item had broken off on the side of those light posts. So I don't know what the fix for that sort of thing is, but I know we're working on trying to get rid of some of the graffiti across the system. Jesse.
I can mention the maintenance did just take all of those down.
Yeah.
Just to prevent any more people jumping and snapping those off.
Yeah, I mean, it looked pretty miserable, and I know we're not utilizing them, so we might as well probably just take them off. But yeah, again, yeah, through my jaunt through the park system this last couple of weeks, there's a pretty severe amount of graffiti across all the systems, whether it's benches on the concrete or the bridge. Obviously, it just gotten pretty egregious. So I would kind of look forward to having programs that allow some of these groups to come in and have specific areas if they want in our park system that they could take care of the graffiti on a regular basis, or just something that cleans that up. Because I mean, I don't know how long it had been since the bridge had been cleaned up, but and I don't know. Again, I don't know how consistent. I mean, if we're getting graffiti every evening or whatever it might be, and you can't stop that sort of thing. But cleaning it up and having it be an important part of our community is really big, and I'm, like I said, very appreciative of the team to take care of that. So that's all for me. Andrew, what's up?
I attended the joint meeting of the Loons and the Rice Lake Association a few weeks ago. It was constructive, productive. Everybody's interested in turning a new page. So a couple notes I had. The Rice Lake Association has 2 contact phone numbers with the ski loons for any issues or concerns. The sheriff is placing buoys 250 feet from shore as folks request it, so the drivers will have a reference. And the ski loon drivers mentioned that they really liked having a reference, so that seems good. The Skeelans have also adjusted their dock to make it really easy to pull towards the center of the lake. So that should help as well.
Yeah, I appreciate you attending that because I was not able to make it. So I'm glad you were able to see that. That was great.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Nothing. All righty. Well, we'll look for a motion to adjourn then.
So moved. Second.
Motion to second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.